Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. After booming for a decade or so, the craft beer industry is in a bit of trouble. More than a dozen independent breweries across the country have either shut down or gone into administration over the past year, including some big names like Wayward Brewing, Hawkers and Ballistic. But there are still some standout success stories that have continued to grow and grow and grow. One of those is Mountain Culture Beer Co., which started as a small brewery in Katoomba in the New South Wales Blue Mountains back in 2019. Since then, Mountain Culture has increased production by 4,000%, been voted Australia's favourite beer twice, released over 300 limited release beers, and is stocked in over 1,000 independent bottle shops across the country. DJ McCready is the CEO and co-founder of Mountain Culture Beer Co. DJ, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thanks, Sean. Great to be here.
Now, I'll get your thoughts on the broader industry in a moment, but tell me the Mountain Culture story. To be honest, I drive past Katoomba all the time, and I didn't ever, until this interview came up, I didn't know anything about you. Tell me your story.
Oh, mate. Well, you have to stop in at some point. Yeah, so look, Mountain Culture started out in Katoomba. 2019, we opened our doors, took on a heritage building up there because we just really connected with the Blue Mountains and really wanted to start our brand in an area that had a lot of character to it and several things that we could draw inspiration from. So my wife and I have both been big outdoor fans our whole lives and really feeling like the Blue Mountains was just the right spot to start up our brand. So we set out 2019 to open up a small brew pub, one, because we really wanted to have a lot of connection with our customers, and two, because, well, even though we had pretty big dreams about where the company would go, we didn't have the biggest budget. And opening up brew pub was pretty much all the cash that we could possibly scrounge together, looking under every mattress, borrowing every little cent from anybody who was able to loan us some money. And we opened up as a small little operation up there.
Are you a brewer? Presumably you need skill to brew beer. Who does that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background has always been in production. I started brewing when I was about, 22, 23 years old, just making beer on my sink in my apartment back in the U.S. with a roommate. I ended up teaching for a university for a while, brewing science, moved over here to Australia in 2014 to be part of a startup on the Northern Beaches, and then set out to open up our own company to where, I was the founding brewer of, leading the team and looking towards the future of the brewery. I find it just insanely valuable to have actually come from production and actually have such a love for beer making and the product.
So I kind of get wine making. I don't necessarily know much about beer making. Now, for those who don't know, Mountain Culture Beer, you twice have taken out the top spot in the Gab's Hottest 100 Craft Beer People's Choice Poll. That's a big deal. In your industry, it's a huge deal. What is it about beer making? What's the ingredient? Is it a timing thing? Is it a moisture thing? What is it that makes beer so good, particularly your beer?
Well, look, I think this is the reason why I've always been so in love with this industry and beer making in general is there's just endless possibilities of the way you can go about creating beer. There's so many different inputs farmed locally and from around the world. And then there's a million different ways to process those inputs depending on, the manufacturing equipment that you put in, your ethos as far as a brewer, what you find interesting on your palate and the way that you want the beers to come across. There's so many different variables that it's just literally endless, the different opportunities you can have to create a beer. So for us, we don't really focus on one particular thing with our beer making. My philosophy has always been that it's the sum of several small parts coming together that really make a beer go from being ordinary to extraordinary. And it's the same way that we run the company, that there's no one part of Mountain Culture that makes it such a a great beer brewery, it's the sum of every little part of the company coming together to make it, a really standout brand.
Stay with me, DJ. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to DJ McCready, CEO and co-founder of Mountain Culture Beer Co. Okay, so your first brew pub was capable of brewing 60,000 litres a year. You now have the capacity for 8 million litres with a new production facility at Emu Plains in Sydney's west. That is huge growth and very, very quickly. How daunting was it for you to step up production like that?
I think I stopped thinking about it like about 6 or 7 months in. I remember the hardest decision that I had was when we were sitting at that 60,000 liter a year mark. And at that point, I could count all the people that were involved in our business probably on one hand. I remember looking at like, okay, if I order more equipment, and I think at this point we were talking about like 80, 100 grand worth of equipment coming in. Yep. I really just felt like I was like, that was the point of no return for me, because we've gone from being like we just sell a little bit of beer over our own bar and we're happy there, to like now we're dipping our toes into the real world. And, once we just jumped in, my competitive nature was really taking over at that point and being like, well, we've gone from being like, we're creating a little bit of beer for the Blue Mountains to the only way I'm going to accept that we're successful is if we're, the strongest national craft brand that's out there.
So how did you grow your brand then? Because many people would be listening to this and think it's a great story, but how do you grow your brand in such a competitive industry too?
It's a super competitive industry. There's a lot of talented people in this industry, a lot of really creative people in this industry. And I think, again, like in a nutshell, I come back to like, there's not one thing that I can really point to say, you know what, that's what made Mountain Culture successful. Again, it was the sum of, a lot of small parts coming together that made the whole better, where we were really focusing a lot on R&D and creating products that when we started, people used to say, oh, you're a hype brewery. And like, as kind of a negative thing. And I used to really take that and be like, yes, I'm excited to create products
totally.
We're excited about. I want to give people something that they're like so stoked about that they want to tell all their friends and they want to tell their family about it. And they want to buy the hat and the t-shirt and wear the brand.
Yeah.
But then, we really ran the businesses. We've never looked to create customers. Like we've looked to create like, more family and friends around our brand and to just have a lot of fun with what we do, because at the end of the day, we are brewing beer. It's, it is a fun product. It's meant to be part of people's fun times. It's meant to be part of social gatherings and people reconnecting. So really just, embodying that with our marketing and the way that we communicate with people and the way that we interact with, our fans and friends of the brand at events has been really important to us.
So 12 years ago, a friend of mine decided to drink a different beer every day, 365 beers. By the time he got to about 300, he was really struggling to find a different beer to get to. Fast forward 5 years, let's say, and it was just the whole craft beer industry just took off. And there were so many. Now we're actually seeing them pull back with the administrators and closures of some. What's the prognosis for the industry, for the craft beer industry? And keeping in mind that you have the big players, the CUBs and Lion, the Asahi and Kirin's, who have bought a bunch of Australian craft beers. You have the idea of craft washing and that. What's the outlook for guys like you?
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think any industry is going to have its challenges, and I think craft beer has been very lucky to be living in a bubble for a really long time, to where, it's kind of glory days of craft. It was easy to sell. There was just lots and lots and lots of abundant green pastures for everybody to go to. And I think now it is becoming more competitive. And, I think that happens in any successful industry, and it does make growth more challenging, and we have to be creative about the way that we grow our products and the way that we grow the interest in what we're doing. But, I still really think those opportunities exist out there. And I don't think it's necessarily as doom and gloom as, everybody lets on. Like, yeah, there are challenging, times with the majors creating their own brands. But, at the same time, there's a lot more educated fans out there on craft beer in general who, know the difference and who reach for a product that actually has a genuine brewery behind it, who's putting everything into making that product better and better and, delivering on like really quality experiences with their beer. So, it's definitely more challenging, but I think that that's just any industry as it evolves.
Good luck with it, DJ. Thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
That was DJ McCready, CEO and co-founder of Mountain Culture Beer Co. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.